Hello there. My name is C2 and I hope you are having a fantastic day. Today we're going to go over MXL Sigma 2.0. What is it? Who is it for? And why would you play this? Well, first, maybe you are a Diablo 2 player that wants something fresh. Maybe before Diablo 2 Resurrected starts in about 2 weeks. Maybe you're a Path of Exile player that simply wants something new while the league is dying off. Maybe you've been like a fan of Diablo 2 for, well, 20 years and want something new. Well, Median is there for you. Let's take a look real quick on what actually is Median XL. First and foremost, it's very important to understand that Median XL is not your typical mod. It's what they call an overhaul modification. It's literally what some modders through the years might have called a total conversion. Basically, it expands on the engine on Diablo 2. It follows kind of the same story, it uses the same structure, but adds literally a layer over your typical Diablo 2 experience. Let's say you are a Path of Diablo or a Project Diablo 2 player. Those are mods that still retain some of the good old feeling of Diablo 2. Median takes it and literally evolves upon it, adds its own mechanic, a very, very different skill system, completely different. If you use the same class archetypes, you might be lost, but that's okay. There's a lot to explore here, and we'll talk about that a bit later. There's a truck ton of items. There's a quest system we'll talk about later. Crafting is amazing. There's a lot of quality of life and stuff like that. I'm gonna go over a few, and you will probably discover some of your own, etc. We'll talk about it later. But yes, it's important to understand that it's not your simple mod. Next up, let's talk about how to install the game. Alright, so you're ready to play Median XL. So what do you need to do? First, you're gonna need a legal Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction installation. How do you do that? Well, you go to the Battle.net website, and once you entered or bought your keys, it's fair to say that this is worth literally buying Diablo 2 again. You're gonna sink hundreds of hours if you want into this mod. It's great. So once you've downloaded your good old Diablo 2 legally, it needs a legal key, by the way. That's literally how they are authorized to do that, because it still sells keys. So you need to install your Diablo 2 as you would normally. Download the two installers, install each of them into your typical folder, and once you're ready, you're gonna go here, press play free, and it's gonna download the installer for the launcher. Once you've got that installed, it's a simple, normal process. You're gonna end up in the launcher. The first thing it's gonna ask you to do is very simple. Just select the folder you installed Diablo 2 in. That's literally it. Once you're ready, there should be an install button instead of play there. You click that. It's gonna download everything for you. You don't have anything else to do. The next thing you can do is go to settings and set up your stuff. For most people, you're gonna select glide, which I strongly advise. You can click the other options, and that's literally it. Once you're done, click there, click play, and you're gonna end up in the game. That's it. That's simple. It's one of the simplest mods you can install, so that's great. Alright, so once you've launched the game, the first thing you're gonna have to choose between is either single player or multiplayer. there's advantages and disadvantages to both, which I'm gonna be brutally honest here. So this is real. In single player, you have a few things that are really cool for you. First, you're not online, which I'll go over in a second. But two, there's the private stash. The private stash is made so you don't have to mule, basically. And you can switch between a shared storage between your characters and a tree stash storage for your character, which is great. It's great. It's literally the only feature that's only available for the moment in single player. If, for some kind of reason, you would like to play multiplayer, which is great. In multiplayer, you have your good old stash, but you can play with others. You can trade, obviously, with others, and we'll go over trading a bit later. You can mule safely. You can launch the game twice, basically, and have your two characters in the same, and just mule with yourself. You don't have to wait for the game to be permanent. You can do that. And the biggest feature that's currently only available on the Sinwar, the official server, is that there's loot goblins. There's a few different ones, but just know that it's free loot, and it's treasure goblins like in D3. Just cool. And the only thing to be aware is there is some server instability, which is to be expected for Diablo 2 modded. It's not something new, it's not only for this mod, but servers can be crowded. At times, as far as I understand right now, there's usually around 2,000 to 3,000 players online, which is amazing for a mod. If you're not aware, that's amazing. They have peaks over 10,000 each day since the start of the season about a week and a half ago, which is great. So, yeah. You gotta make your choice if you want to play with me or discuss with me online or trade with me. You're gonna have to be online, but if you would like to play safely offline, you know, have your multiple stash tabs and stuff like that, and obviously no lag, because one of the biggest problem with Diablo 2 online, and that's since the good old vanilla days, is desync, which you are simply not exactly where you are on the screen. And that's kind of exacerbated in this mod, because some challenges will have a lot of things on screen. So be wary. I prefer online, but that's up to you. All right. So next up, we're going to go over what I call loot structure, or how you evolve the gear for your character over the game. And that's quite possibly the most important part of the video for new players, so listen well. First, don't be scared. You're gonna see a lot of things here, but that's normal. First, you have a big inventory in this game. Ignore this part here. We're gonna go over that later. Just understand that it's still the same good old Diablo 2 in terms of uniques and set items, except that for median, there is tiers of uniques. Let me see if I can gamble. Okay, so the way that loot is structured, there is 5 tiers of gear. Each basically base types has 5 tiers: 1, 2, 3, 4, and sacred. The difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, and sacred is that sacred is drop only. Why do I say that? It's because gambling or drops in the game have tiers. If you look at the name of these items, you can see that they have a number in parentheses. These are the tiers of the items. Remember that. Those are used to make what we call tiered uniques. These are like these. In this case, this all-seeing eye is a base of tier 4 and is unique. The best way, honestly the only real way to progress your character through the story to get to hell, which hell in itself is kind of mid-game in a sense, is by making or dropping tiered uniques. Typically, through normal, you're gonna use items that are base tier 1 and 2, maybe 3 towards the end. And then in Nightmare, you're gonna go over 3 and 4. I said you can make your uniques because that's actually true. The way you progress your character is through normal. You're gonna find this item called the Catalyst of Disenchantment. It drops from Endariel on normal, so kind of early. So what you do is you use your cube, which is nicely big, you know, girdy, if you want, and you take your item and your unique, and if you hit transmute, which by the way has a hotkey by default in this mod, which is amazing. If you do that, which I won't because I'm gonna need this Arnold soon, it's gonna make what we call arcane shards. Arcane shards are used to make arcane crystals. If you DC a unique of either tier 1 to 4, you're gonna get 1 arcane shard. Then by, you know, putting them together in here, and you transmute them, once you have 5, it's gonna transmute it to an arcane crystal. And what you do is, typically if you need to make a new unique, you come to a gambler, or you can try and find the base in the world, but that's typically rarer. So what you can do is use this amazing quality of life feature that lets you select the base that you want, weapons first and then armors and etc. And let's say I need a scale mail for some reason. Well, it's gonna highlight them this way. So what you can do is you can go over with this new other quality of life feature that you can literally gamble by staying in the screen. So what you do is you take a base, like in this case, the scale mail. Oh my god, it's a rare. That doesn't matter. What you want is to take that base and mix it with 2 arcane crystals, which by the way you can hold control and click to transfer from this inventory to this inventory. And yes, this works with the stash. So you take your base, 2 arcane crystals, and you need 1 more item called an oil of enhancement. You take this oil, this blue oil, go back into your cube, and cube these 4 items together and hit transmute. And there you go. I have a robe of leaves now, which is honestly a good chest. And let's show you what it does. Once you destroy an item, you get these, which can, you know, fuse, and like I said, you get arcane crystals, which is great. The other thing you can do with this is an arcane cluster. Don't worry too much about that. That's just to stack crystals. You can create that by simply using an oil of craft with a crystal, and it's gonna make a cluster in which you can literally right-click crystals into, which is great. You can do the same, by the way, with basic runes, gems, and another item type called shards. Shrines, rather, sorry. So, as I said, you get the catalyst on your first try, and the first time you kill Endariel. And then, what you can do, if for some kind of reason, in the build you're gonna do, or if you're really willing, you can literally farm Endariel over and over, because she drops 1 unique each time. Duriel does the same. And then starting at Act 3, Mephisto and over, you get 2 shards per kill. So what people will typically do is start making the good uniques for their build with Mephisto, because it's a lot more efficient. The actual most efficient place in the entire game, until you're at the very, very, very end, is Nil Attack. After, you know, in behind Pindle Skin, Nil Attack always drops two uniques, but the layout to get there is pretty fast, and he also drops a rune. So once you get to the end of normal, it's kind of expected that you will how can I say that? By Nightmare, essentially before starting Nightmare, you're probably gonna end up with a full suit of tiered uniques or rune words, which I'm gonna go over in a second. As far as sacred items goes, sacred items will start dropping at around the end of Nightmare, but you cannot create uniques. They have to drop. And we'll go over what that means in a bit. But typically, those will start dropping around, I believe it's area level 105. So I think it's in Hell. And I hope I'm right on that. Might be end of Act 5 in Nightmare. The other thing you will find is set items. Set items are, as far as I know, all on sacred bases. They start dropping around level 80. Some of them are required level 80, some 90. By the way, if I didn't mention, I don't think I did, you can go all the way to level 150 in this mod. So don't worry too much about that. But what that means is you're going to get your skills a lot faster. A lot of skill points, which is great. And by the way, you can respec for free Atakara an unlimited number of times before level 50, which is probably the best feature I've seen in this mod in 2.0. Uniques and set items always come with a maximum number of sockets. Typically, you will fill those with good runes or charms, or even gems and armor. A very important thing to remember, there is a new gem type, a few new gem types in this mod. If you take a look here, those are clusters. As you can see, those are stacked gems. Again, you can use a gem with an oil of craft and transmute them, and you will be able to stack your gems. But as you can see, some of these on armor, so any kind of armor slots, which by the way has some in literally every slot, have +1 maximum resist, which is extremely important by the end of Nightmare, and even in starting towards the end of normal. You're gonna want to either put some in your shield to by Diablo you want maximum fire resist, that I can tell you. So you can use your shield sockets and fill them with classic ones, or you can use the new ones in your armor and boost your maximum fire resist, which by the way is very important at endgame. You're gonna want to have as much as you want of them, but that's okay, don't worry too much about it. Oh, I forgot to mention, tiered uniques can be upgraded to the next tier, which is super important to know. So how do you do that? You put your item with simply an arcane crystal in it, so, and you hit transmute. In this case I can't because it's already tier 4, but that's how you do it. Essentially, before doing that, big warning, what you can do is go over to the website and go into the documentation, which I'm gonna go over everything about it later, but the tiered unique section shows you the requirements, both the level and the stats you need. So you should double check before upgrading your tiered items, because you won't be able to revert back, and that's gonna suck because you could lose your weapon or an important piece of armor. By the way, when you up tier, you should empty the sockets of it, because they're gonna be lost if you do. How you do that? Well, you talk to your oil guy and you get an oil of disjunction. Put that in the item, in the cube with the item. Hit transmute, and it's gonna empty up. I think that's pretty much everything there is to know about the actual progression of items. That's literally the core component of the game. Eventually, you're gonna be covered in sacred stuff. But what's important to know? Oh yes, I almost forgot. Rune words. Rune words in this game. There's also a documentation page for them. You're gonna see a lot of one rune words. How do you deal with that? Is either you find the base with that many sockets, or what you can do in this mod is fill the empty sockets with jewels. So you can just simply put like jewel, and then the rune word. And let's say a 3-socket weapon, well, you would do jewel, and then a nailed rune. Which, by the way, you're gonna find a lot of runes, which is great, because what you can do, again, with an oil of craft, you can make clusters to hold them, all of them together. Oh my god, I have 11 Zod. What's important to know is in this mod there is something called enchanted runes, which are literally rune 34 to 66. Essentially, it's just a new tier above Zod, which is cool. There's a lot of stuff. It's basically the same rune, but enhanced. For example, a normal mal is 3%, while a mal is 4%. So they're just a bit more min-maxy. That's it. So what you do is, like in this case, you can see that I put 2 jewels, and then the runes required for this amazing weapon that does Cataclysm. And that's something else you will learn later, but there's a lot of procs in this mod, which is great. But yes, you can go over in the documentation. I strongly advise learning about the basic rune words for the early game. Like you can see, a weapon with a nailed rune will have a very nice, simple rune word to get you started early. There is like some very simple ones, like a net. The most common ones are in belt. Rainbow is simply a net, and it has 10 to 15 all resist, which is super useful early. In boots, epicenter is done with an ist. It's life, resist, some crushing blow, and some defense. So they are very, very simple, but super efficient. One is done with a staff called Pax Mystica. It's a 2-1. It's L tier, so super easy. And what's good about this one is that 2 to 5 to blink. So that's a teleport that you can keep, let's say, in your other weapon set on your swap, and teleport as you level. It's super useful. I strongly advise it. And yeah, just go over all of these. There's a lot to learn here. Technically, you can do a throw weapon with an L in it, and get good stuff. So it's a good source of early progression. And I strongly advise just doing basic stuff until you're full of uniques towards the end of your normal playthrough. Alright, so next part we're gonna go over is what we call Mystic Orbs. Mystic Orbs are items that you find on one NPC per act. And it's these things here. Basically what they do is personalize an item. And by that, what that means is, yes, you can still trade your items, as in good old D2. This does not soul bind it, but the odds that someone will trade you are extremely low because they might not be, and that's the very important part of Mystic Orbs, is that they raise your required level, as you can see here on the tooltip. And once you do that, well, the item's gonna be raised in level. Like if you look here, that's a required item level of 140. What this does is basically enhances items to new heights. And it's one of the nicest features of this mod, is that you can personalize your stuff and basically fill gaps in your build or push to new limits. Let's say what you can do is add MF to any equipable item, but you gotta remember that one, it adds 4 required levels, and 2, each Mystic Orb can only be applied 5 times. So that's 20 required levels per item. How does that work? Well, you basically take the item, you buy it, right click it, and then click the item, and poof, it's gonna be what did I buy here? Like a weapon. What you can do, let's say here it's, well, level 1, but if you use this on there, see that it raises our required level 4, because 4 higher levels. So that's literally there is some unique orbs that add 10 required levels, but have a much bigger effect. But those are ultra endgame. You probably won't see them for a long while, so I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, that's Mystic Orb for you. Very good stuff. You can use it to pad. Let's say you do a summoner build. Well, these are going to be extremely important while you level, because you don't get much of those stats on actual normal uniques. There is some, but you can pad these on your items. All right, so you're ready to play, and you want to know what's different during your leveling experience. So there's a few key things to remember. One, in Act 1, Cain, while he's trapped, the reason to get him is to you will get a unique armor that's very, very good for your early game, and will probably carry you to up until the end of normal, maybe until you redo that quest on Nightmare. And that Nightmare one could very well lead you to Hell fairly easily, depending on your build, so it's worth doing. You can continue like normally until the end of Act 5. In Act 5, you're gonna have a special quest that you can do. Here it's called the level challenge. Basically, right before Baal, there's gonna be a portal that pops up, which I strongly advise you do first before Baal, because, well, as you may know, once you go kill Baal and click the portal, you get exited out of the game. So might as well just do this right before. Anyway, you're gonna be able to take the portal back and go kill Baal after. There's what they call the level challenge, which you need level 50 to enter the portal. I'm not sure why that's there, but you need to be between 50 and 60. After 60, there's like a penalty of 2 arcane crystals per 10 levels. But what you gotta understand is you go into that portal, kill the 3 bosses that you will find in that area, get the item they drop, and cube them together to get the Sunstone of the Twin Seas, which, as you can see, is very, very, very good. So you do that, and if you've done the Anya quest, instead of right-clicking it, like you would do in vanilla, the scrolls that that you're given. What you do is you cube it with this thing and adds 10 elemental resist on top of it. So it's worth doing. That's the only added quest in normal, so don't worry too much. Now, as far as Nightmare go, at around level 80, you're gonna kill Mephisto. Mephisto will spawn a portal called for what they call the Enid challenge, and at the end of it, there's some bosses. They can drop a torch, and that torch, if you cube it, will not only add stats, but will unlock what they call the Enid skill, which if you not this one, if you go into your rewards, the Enid skill is this slot here in the reward tab. That skill is usually very good for your class. It's worth doing. There's good drops in there, so that's worth doing too. And yeah, then you can keep going on your merry way and go all the way to Baal and kill him. By the end of Nightmare, I strongly advise to have all your tiered uniques to tier 4. Because you're gonna go into Hell, and Hell is what I would say mid-game, because that's where you start doing your quests that are very special. Let's go over what I mean by that. In this mod, and this is where things get really, really, really cool. In Median, you have what we call dungeons and rifts. As you can see, there's a lot of them. What does that mean? Rifts are farming areas. Essentially, you're gonna level in these, and what's special about them is sometimes they have cool rewards in terms of uniques that you can get, and they are charms. If you remember, you probably saw it in my inventory earlier. These are charms. Outside of these charms, there's no basic charms like in D2. You're gonna have these, which some of them unlock stuff. Some of them give really, really good stats. I'm going over them really quickly here. There's quite a few, which I strongly recommend visiting to know the actual order of doing things. Like you can see here, Island of Sun and Sea is going to be your first farming area. It's in the Stony Tomb, right outside the Act 2 city. And it drops, each of these typically have a bias. Draw bias. You get a lot of gold here, which is where people will typically farm gold to do their mystic orbs for their entire gear. That's typically where we'll go. People will go when they need gold. The cow level, which you can only do on Hell difficulty, don't need to have Baal killed. You can literally just go get the leg and go in there. So in here, junk items drops, which doesn't mean much, but you can get a lot of stuff because obviously density and stuff like that. So what I strongly advise to do is you go here on the Rift section. These are basically the tabs that I already usually have open, because there's a lot of cool things to check, like roles and stuff like that. Dungeons are a bit different. They typically involve literally just doing a boss. That boss will have a reward. Like in Tristram on Hell, there's gonna be a portal that lets you kill the butcher, and the butcher can drop his tooth. So it's a good idea to be level 105 once you get to Tristram, and then you can go down this list. They all have the section, like the location for each of them, and I strongly advise, like, basically make it a checklist. Make sure you have everything. Know the good stats you need for your build. Do you need resist? If so, well, you might do them a couple times. Each side area in Hell has a chance to drop a special oil, which I don't know completely, but yeah, you still need to do them to get those oils specifically until the final rift, which is called Skosklen. Which, by the way, if you want to see what a paladin looks like in Skosklen, I have footage of that in my channel right now. And obviously, if you like Media MXL content, I strongly advise you subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like if you like this guide. And yeah, if you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment. I will answer as best I can. In Skosklen, you have a chance to drop different oils. These oils are normally farmed in side areas of each of the 4 acts. So you can do that until, you know, you get to the very end of the game. So that's cool. But yes, that's pretty much what's to know about the game structure. I strongly advise you go to these 2 pages. Check them out from time to time. You know, as you level, each 5 level basically unlocks a new section. Like this is 115, this is 120, and etc. until 130, which is extremely hard, by the way. Very hard. It's super challenging. It's some really good aspirational content. And don't worry, once you get to the end of Act 5 in Hell, there's Baal. You're not expected to kill him on the first time. Don't worry. It's actually a dungeon. That is, I believe, 120. Called the Eye of Destruction. And he drops some really, really cool charm. I believe that's it for the game structure. So let's go to the next section. All right, so I figured I'm gonna do a quick documentation overview of what all the features you can find on the website. By the way, the documentation for this game is extremely extensive, and that's very, very nice. I don't really need to get information from third party. There is some, but I really wish games would do that kind of stuff. It's chef's kiss. First things you should check is the patch notes. There's a lot of information in there, including something that I didn't talk about. There's a way to add like up to 8K resolution. This is kind of third party at the moment. You can go there, but you cannot use the launcher to launch the game if you do that. But it lets you have the game looking really good. Like, this is amazing looking for Diablo 2. So that's done through what we call CNC DDraw. There's information, if you look for CNC DDraw on the forum, in the search, you're gonna have a great post that, you know, people discuss find problems and etc. I strongly advise you do that. But you can play with the 3DFX basic stuff and hit Control Enter and play like that on full screen, you know, and still look slightly good. So that's up to you. But yeah, I advise checking the patch notes from time to time. It's worth doing. Next up, you have all the characters with their stats, their weapons. It's a very summary view of what they do. Then you have items. The Q recipe section is gonna be your friend. Don't hesitate to check it. There's a lot of important information in there, how to add socket to stuff, up tier like I mentioned. Change the quality, make honorific items, which use the mystic orbs I talked right before. And these items are empty, level 1, but mystic orbs are doubled. That's amazing. There's a lot of interesting stuff like shrine crafting, which I won't go over, but I suggest you check it out. It's like vanilla Diablo 2 crafting, but much, much, much stronger. You can craft your own jewels with predefined bonuses on them. very worth checking out. Something super important, if you somehow made it this far and you played this a while ago, you can the charms that I have in my inventory can be upgraded to what we call trophied. As you can see on this one, this corrupted wormhole, there's a small text in gray, which means the trophy bonus was applied to it, which in this case was 30% MF. How do you get that? Well, killing bosses in dungeons can yield a trophy fragment, which you take 3 of them and upgrade them into a trophy. How do you get fragments? They can drop, I believe, 6% of the time on most bosses in dungeons, but if you have 20 charms, which, hint, once you have it once, you cannot get more than one unless you manually pick it up from the ground and put it into your cube. This way you can transport it back onto your stash and leave it there. Other good stuff, clusters, like I mentioned, are in here. You can unsocket stuff. You can make an item, make sure that monsters you kill rest in peace, which is amazing. And if you have way too much time on your hand, you can get a gem that says you're rich, that does absolutely nothing. Next, the quests that I mentioned are here. The wiki here has a lot of cool stuff, like you can see, like the unique mystic orbs I went over real quick. You can know about a special stat in this game called spell focus, which takes your spell and use your energy and spell focus stats to augment the power of it, which I strongly advise stacking on elemental damage builds. There's special socketable items that are called relics, that are global drops, so you can't farm them. And these will have special effects that you can socket into an item, and it raises the item's requirement by 10 levels, but have very, very special stuff. Usually they unlock the skill and add good stats, so that's the thing to know. Item affixes are extremely important. What you can do basically is when you're crafting, you can go here and search, let's say, on jewels. I'd like the different speeds. Well, you can know the minimum item level of that you need to have this roll on it. So every time you use a shrine or jewel craft something, you can come here and check. Let's say I want I don't know, paladin level items, paladin skill level as well. You can see where that can roll and starting at which item level, which is amazing. By the way, you can see the group number here. Each group is exclusionary, so you can't roll both 2 and 3 skill levels, etc. So that's good to know. And the different trophy bonuses, like I mentioned, that's great. The way how spell damage works is explained here, and you can see all the different looks for each item, which is cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the wiki. As far as an actual wiki, there is a wiki if you search on Google or go here. There's a few different things that are important on here. One that's super popular is the different maps. At the end, if you'd like to know what each area can look like, which is all static, by the way, there's no randomization in terms of the new rifts and dungeons look like. Well, you can go here and literally check what the map looks like and stuff like that. There's not the information on the wiki is not super up to date, but some of them is extremely useful. Sometimes you will find items that have a skill on it that you really don't know what it is. Let's say I'm on the spot, but let's say Cataclysm, I think. Yeah, Cataclysm is a spell that casts a ring of deadly fireballs. It shoots 32 fireballs, etc. So in where you can find it, and it looks like that. So that's cool. So the wiki is something, I'll link it in the description. All right, so you've seen all this information, but you don't really know what to play or which build you want to play. If you're a PoE player, you probably want a build guide, right? But you really don't know where to start. Well, there's 2 resources for you as far as finding new builds, which, by the way, don't be scared. Yes, there is 8 tabs here with a lot of things. Don't worry, try things out. As I mentioned before, level 50, you go to Akara after you've done the Den of Evil, and you have unlimited respecs. By the way, in this game, the way it works, before level 50, you can respec every like at any time you want. After that, you get your classic 3 resets, 1 per difficulty after the Den of Evil, and after that, there's an item called a Belladonna extract, which is a global drop, so you can exactly farm them. But in single player, you can buy them from the store, and online they drop fairly frequently. Like, I haven't had like a problem respecking. I have like 6 on the mule or something like that, so I wouldn't worry about it. But if you do, you can trade them with other players, and they're fairly cheap, so don't worry too much about that. But yes, let's say you want a guide, right? You don't know what to start with. Well, there's a post which I'll link in the description that has a long list of really basically like a quick way to know what to play, and these are for 1.8, and that's something to remember. For every single guide out there, there is some 2.0 specific build guide, but there's a bunch of old ones. It's not that they're extremely outdated, but the items may have changed, the uniques and the set and the rune words may have changed. The skill interactions may not be perfect or kind of different. For example, the build I'm playing on only melee paladin in the guide has references to summons, but now there's something called melee devotion, which is here, and what it says is you get 20 damage reduction from everything, literally everything, but you can only use melee, buffs and debuffs, and quest skills. That's it. You can't use summons. Well, in the guide that I was following at the start, it was mentioning summons, which you cannot use. So things changed a bit, but still you should be able to function, and some of these are already updated for 2.0, so don't worry too much. If it's your first time, I would start with anything that's in here. Literally. You go there, take one of these that fits your playstyle, you can read up a bit on each of them, and they all have a button to go to the guide, and they are usually very, very, very well done. They tell you what item to get, which uniques to craft, like I mentioned, etc. So you can go there. The other option is to go on the forum. First, by the way, you can see who's streaming, and God, wow, that's a lot of new people. Good stuff. I hope you're gonna be one someday. But you've got your big viewers right now. There's over 2,000 people viewing Diablo 2 right now, which is amazing. So that's great. But what you can do is, if you go here and you go into the guide center, you're gonna see a bunch of them. You can see the version that they are. Pick one, check it out. I'm sure you'll find something. I personally recommend Paladins. They're kind of broken right now. It might be the last patch, who knows. If you'd like to know what only Paladin looks like, check out my other videos on my channel. And yeah, that's pretty much it as far as you know, builds go, I guess. Starters or different builds too. All right, so you've chosen a class, you've chosen a build, you know how you want to get to the end, but you would like some help. Well, don't worry, you can get an amazing hireling. In this game, hirelings are amazing. until maybe the very end, which you need to build in a specific way so they don't die. But during the playthrough, they are extremely powerful, quite resilient, and will help you a lot in terms of in terms of surviving and killing stuff. So I strongly advise them. In this case, on this guy, I chose a ranger. She has a heal for the party, which is great, and a lot of damage stuff that are extremely important. As you can say, they get a lot of new items. Basically, it's the same as we do, but without the rings. So that's cool. Focus on max resist with them. Fill your items with gems. Extremely important. And I'm not gonna go much more in depth with that. What you can do is I will link this in the description. Decide to subscribe and like button. And you can go over and see all the abilities they have and how to gear them, the stats that you can have, basically what you should get with your spec and what gear they should have, with templates. Extremely well done. It's mostly 2.0 viable. There might be some things here and there, but NotCube, who made this guide, really good job, my guy. Extremely useful stuff. I strongly recommend. Alright, so you've decided to play on the online servers, usually because you want to trade stuff, right? Well, this mod has something called trade gold, which is something you can buy your way in. If you have a bunch of money, you can donate, and that they're gonna give you TG in exchange. What people do is they usually start farming arcane crystals early and sell those. Like you can see here, somebody's trying to sell 100 of them for some trade gold, which you can use towards other stuff. So that's great if you're gonna use the system and build up some stuff. As you can see, this is accessed, by the way, through community and trade center. Basically, people can well, not in this case, but what you can do is make a shop, so people can see what you have and what you would like to trade, which is cool. What you can do also is auctions. Basically, you post what item you have, the minimum. There's a fee, so don't post small stuff there. But what you can do is, like, you can see some items are worth a lot. There's even an item called Azure Rat that I believe sold for over 9,000. Yes, over 9,000. If I take a look real quick, you can price check everything. Essentially, this price check is what people put in this comment section. Yeah, I believe Azure Wrath, yes, sold for 9.2k. That's a bit excessive, but it's one of the best items in the game. Just like Tyrell's might, I believe. Tyrell's. Or not Tyrell. Well, I don't know. Tyrell's something. I don't remember the name completely, but some items are extremely costly. Like, I'll leave this here. You can leave a photo and stuff like that. These items are nuts. And yes, some are worth a lot. So what you can do is, you can make a shop on the Discord, which I'm going to talk a bit later. There's a trading section where you can post stuff you want to buy and want to sell to. So that's something else. You can use the global chat in the game to trade stuff there. Essentially, everything is based off of TG. It's kind of warped the entire market around it, and the more people that donate to the mod others, the more TG there is on the market. So obviously, inflation is abound. Yeah, that's pretty much everything that there is to know about TG's trade gold. All right, next we have something in the game called Signets of Learning. if you look in your stats, which by the way, there's a little arrows there. On the second section, there's what we call stat signets. Each character can have 400 stat signets, which you can basically get new points that you can put here. And that comes from signets. How do you get signets? Well, some will drop naturally. There's even an area around, I believe, level 110 called Thorajan Forest that tends to drop them a bit more. And you just simply right click them. That does a little noise, and then you get 1 point. In this case, I'm maxed, but whatever. At some point, which I wish I remembered, what you can do is with the Catalyst of Learning, with secret items, either secret SUs or set items, you can put them in there and disenchant them. It's gonna give you a Signet of Learning, which, by the way, you can put 5 in them here to make a large signet, and then with the large signet you can put 5 and make transmute them and get a greater signet. So that's a thing. Yeah, that pretty much goes. There's some signets and greater signets of gold, but honestly, as you can see, gold is a plenty in this game. At some point, you don't really run out. All right, next up we have MF. So as I mentioned earlier, you can get magic find on Mystic Orbs. You can find them on gear and everything like that, but essentially the only thing I really want to say is you can go super crazy on MF if you want in every slot and make a farmer for let's say Duncraig, which is slightly kind of easy, and stack as much MF as you want. As far as sets and uniques in this mod, essentially you can see that around 200 to 300 is where diminishing returns start stacking really rapidly in terms of unique MF. Of course, you can push it as much as you want, but in all honesty, like around 200 to 300 is pretty much where you want to live. So that's why when I'm farming, I'm using my wormhole here that has 91, which is by itself extremely good. You can put it on everything you want. Again, remember that Mystic Orbs takes required levels. But yeah, right now I'm sitting at 150. I find that to be pretty good while keeping some form of power on this guy to farm the very last rift called Skosklin. But yeah, it's MF is good. You can do farmers, but just remember there's diminishing returns. All right, so we can go over the last section of the video, which is tools. Essentially, there's 2 things. Well, 3 if you count Discord, which, by the way, you can go into community here and hit the Discord button, which is gonna make you join this fantastic Discord, which has new player questions, discussions, there's trading, that's tech support if you're having any problems with the game. Yes, it can crash from time to time, but if you crash a lot and in a distinct manner, I strongly advise you check out the tech support channel. If you have problems with the CNC draw thing that I mentioned, that's the place to go ask to. You can go find groups there. Yeah, it's worth checking out. Strongly suggest you go over there. I'm there if you'd like to talk, say thank you, or whatever. Feel free to hit me up in the general section. As far as tools go, I believe it's here. Yeah, game tools. There's 2 tools that you want to know about. One of them is very simple, and it's at the bottom here, the speed calculator. It says it's very old, but I find it to be extremely reliable. Essentially, once you download that, it pops that little thing here, which lets you select your class. That includes mercs, by the way, if you want to calculate the speed that you need. Essentially, this is to calculate frames. If you played D2 before, essentially, you want to be as fast as you can, so you attack faster, obviously. But there's also get hit speed, which is the number of frames your character is stuck once it gets hit. Stuff like that. You want to maximize those as best you can. What you do is you select your class. Let's say you're an assassin, and you're going to use dual claws. What you do is you go on the website in the documentation section, and I believe it's is it wiki? No, base items. Am I just blind? Tiered set base items right here. So what you do is you pick your base. Let's say we said claws, so assassin claws. You go there, you check the attack speed modifier here. Let's say you want catars. Well, you select your -20 here. And let's say you have 2 of them, so we go with -20 here. And each of them has attack speed in it. So either through jewels on the base item, and let's say you had a roll for it on your unique, etc. And you have, I don't know, already 100 here and 100 here. Well, that tells you how much of them you need to, to get on gear, like the different combat speeds. So what you can do is, ideally what I try to do is always at least the second tier. Like some of them is easy. Like in this case, if you had cast stuff with those 2 claws, you want 152, so the casting speed is as small as you can get. As far as getting hit, typically this is never really reachable. Unless you try specifically for that, but whatever. You want to go for the second further down. Let's say you block things, so you have 2 claws, you're gonna block. Well, if you block too much, well, you're gonna get, basically get stunned and being able to move for a couple frames, which, by the way, the whole game is centered around 25 frames per second. So let's say you have 5 there, well, that's 1/5 of a second you can't move. So extremely important. I don't know if you haven't played D2 before, this is the way the game is balanced. So always try and reach the maximum breakpoint. So use this tool for that. There's an online version. I don't know how dated it is. I don't use it personally. It's exactly the same. The other thing you're gonna want to get at some point, maybe not at the start, but if you want to start early and maybe you're coming from PoE, Path of Exile, and you have a loot filter there, well, D2 stats is your way to use that. Essentially, with D2 stats, you have a few options, which I personally love, the notifier and no pickup. You want to go over this, which I'm going to talk in a second, but there's a section called the notifier, which is essentially in the game at the top left. You're going to be notified when the things you specify drop with some colors, some noises, whatever, and you can hide stuff. What I'm going to do is in the description of the video, I'm going to give you access to this, which is a basic leveling filter that has everything you need while leveling early, before you're covered in tiered uniques. It's a good idea to have rares, but at some point, slightly early, you're going to want to remove them. So when you want to comment something, you simply add a hashtag in front of it, and then you hit save. Essentially, you put this in here, hit save. The help section here can help you. Let's say you type gold here. Well, no, that's a bad idea. But let's say, I don't know, rune. Let's type rune. What do you mean, rune? I don't know. Let's type boots. Let's start like this. Whoops, I can't type. Okay, this should work. Okay, so this will show you everything that matches. So let's say you want to hide something or show something. That's where it starts. Down here at the bottom, essentially, I've pre-selected that you're not gonna. Yeah, it's basically gonna hide the basic items. You really shouldn't care about blue items early. at least from what I mean. But as you get further down the line, you're gonna want to hide from the ground everything up to a rare, and even at some point you're gonna remove sacred. So just select the ones you got. You can change this. It's gonna keep showing on the ground every potions. At some point you're gonna want to hide them, show only maybe tier 2s, tier 3s, and even like I believe in Act 3 you can already find the best potions. So basically you're gonna want to comment this one and just show these. Same thing with gems. At some point you don't want them. At some point you want to hide some runes, hide gold, and maybe select the bases you want to craft with later. Stuff like that. So this is a good starter set for a filter that I used. Basically here, if you're gonna make a build, what I did was trying to find the bases when I'm leveling, so I don't have to constantly like gamble for them. But honestly, it doesn't matter. During early leveling, until you actually drop perfect gems steadily, what you can do is uncommon this and uncommon this, and then at some point you only want perfect, so you don't do these ones, stuff like that. So yeah, that's loot filtering for you through deduce stats. Basically how it works is once you're in game, you go here. If you do shift home, that will eject and remove the drop filter. Let's say, I don't know, do I have something bad? I think I don't have fouls. Like, you can see it on the ground here, but it's not showing right now because my filter hides them. If I eject it, I can see them. If I don't, it would hide them. Stuff like that. So it's worth doing. It cleans up your screen. If you use home, it will let you toggle between always pressing Alt for items on the ground. Let me demo that again. So it's there. If I hold Alt, like that's the classic version of D2, it's gonna work this way. If I press home, I will simply need to hit it once and it will keep showing items on the ground, and then I can simply click them, etc. Just know that if you have that on, some things will not be interactable with, including your portal, so you might need to toggle off and on very often, which is a problem, but for some it's worth the trouble. And I think that's pretty much it for the guide. Again, any question I'll be happy to answer. This was a long video. If you stuck completely through it, congratulations. Hopefully you learned something. I'm hoping it did. I might, if this is popular, I might redo it in a more short way. And if this is popular at all, I might actually do like a small guide for the Ubers and stuff like that. So feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And thank you again for watching, and have a good rest of your day.